Today, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my personal journey of starting my own blog, which is called INFJ Woman. I've been writing on it for about a year and a half now, and it's been a really amazing experience. It has completely changed my life in so many amazing ways.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Kuhn. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. Today, I'm going to share with you a little bit about my personal journey of starting my own blog, which is called INFJ Woman. I've been writing on it for about a year and a half now, and it's been a really amazing experience. It has completely changed my life in so many amazing ways. Last week, I did a 5-day How to Blog challenge. A lot of people have asked me about starting their own blogs and starting their own business and how to do that. So I included a lot of how-tos in that challenge, and it went so well that I wanted to share with you some of the highlights today. So without further ado, here we go. So I want to start off by introducing myself just in case there's anybody in the group who doesn't know who I am yet. My name is Sarah Kuhn. That's a picture of me. One of the few pictures that I actually like of me, so you see me use it a lot. I write a blog called INFJ Woman. I host a podcast called The Quiet Ones. I'm a writer. I teach courses and I do coaching. I live in Boston, Massachusetts in the United States, or just south of Boston. And in my free time, well, I love the beach because I live right across the street from a gorgeous beach, but I also love New Kids on the Block. And I've recently decided that I'm going to stop being afraid of who I am and share more of my personality. As an INFJ, this is like really terrifying for me, but on the good side of it, you're going to get to see a lot more of New Kids on the Block. So, I mean, I'm excited for you. I hope that you're excited. I know that Kelly is excited because Kelly likes New Kids on the Block. Another thing, I also have this terrible cough, so hopefully I'm not going to cough too much tonight. but if I do, I apologize. Okay, so why should you trust me? Well, first of all, I'm an INFJ. So I know that the majority of us here are INFJs. So I already understand you from the beginning. And hopefully you can understand me as well. I've been through this process. I've had my blog, INFJ Woman, for a year and a half now. More than a year and a half, I guess. I have tried all of the things that I'm going to tell you. And I'm really only going to share with you the best things that actually work. Because there's so much trial and error that I've done, I can tell you about a lot of things that don't work. Not only that, I've worked in digital marketing for 10 years as my regular career. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into blogging that also you see a transfer over from digital marketing as well, right? So I have a lot of experience, and everything that I'm going to share with you is stuff that I do
that has helped me, and is stuff that I've shared with other people that I coach as well that has helped them. Yes, Kelly, I'm totally excited about sharing more New Kids on the Block stuff. I think it's the best part of this course, honestly, and you're gonna see it like this. I hope that you're ready, because I'm ready. I'm excited. So how many of you have said this? I hate my job. Oh my God, I hate my job so much. Maybe you don't say it out loud. Maybe you just think it. Let me know in the comments if this is something that comes up for you. Because I know that for me, for the longest time, it came up for me every single day. I would think it in the morning when my alarm would go off, and I would roll over and turn it off and just think, oh my God, I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to work. I just don't. And for the longest time, the only thing that got me out of bed was Starbucks. There was a Starbucks between my house and my job, and I could not go to work unless I stopped at Starbucks. That was like my reward for getting myself out of bed and actually going to work. I absolutely loathed being at work. It felt like torture. And some days it took every bit of discipline that I had to actually sit there and stay there. And sometimes it was like, okay, 4 hours until lunchtime. After 2 hours, I can take a break. I'm going to bribe myself with something really good for lunch so that I will actually sit here, because I really don't want to be here. It was just terrible. And when I was growing up, my parents always told me that you had to work at a job that you hated so that you could do what you wanted to do after work. And so that you could make enough money to do what you wanted to do after work. And even from the time that I was young, I thought that was the most ridiculous concept in the whole entire world. And I remember having these arguments with my dad of like, that is just so crazy. Like, why would I spend the majority of my life doing something that I hate? And he was like, that's just how it works. Like, you have to do that. You can't do anything else. That's life. That's how it works. You just have to accept it. So I was kind of bound and determined to prove him wrong and be like, listen, I am not going to work at a job that I hate. And every time I would get into a job that I hate, because I've had a lot of jobs, every time I would do that, I would just feel that torture and remember me telling my dad, I'm not going to work at a job that I hate. So what happened was I worked really, really, really hard so that I could have a job that I loved. And my dream job for the longest time was to be a PR manager for a NASCAR race car driver. And I actually was. In this picture here, you can see he's a pretty famous race car driver right here. That was a total photo bomb. We did not do that on purpose. This is one of my friends. And this is the guy that I used to work for up on the top right-hand side. I spent about 10 years working really, really, really hard to get to a position where I had this job. And I spent 3 years working in this job. And you would think that that would be the happiest time of my life. And it was actually a really happy time, but simultaneously, it was the worst point of my life as well. I found myself in a really deep depression that was really, really difficult to deal with. It got so bad at one point that I contemplated ending everything. I just felt like my life had no meaning and no purpose, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to change it. And it just felt horrible. And I thought, I've given up so much. I've worked so hard to get to this spot, and here I am, and it's not what I think that it should be. And here I am again in a job where I have no purpose, and it doesn't really matter what I do. It doesn't matter if the work that I do gets done or it doesn't get done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't help anyone. It's not changing the world. It's not making anything better. It's just what it is. So what I did in that situation was I went to counseling and I got all of the help that you should get when you're feeling that kind of bad and in that kind of depression. I ended up going through 12 different medications trying to figure out what the right one was for me, and none of them worked. And I just got more and more frustrated, so I started looking for answers in other places. So fast forward a couple of years, from when I left the job as a PR manager, it was about 5 years, I guess. I moved to Boston. This is one of the first pictures that I took. This is at the airport in Boston, looking downtown. And I decided to move to Boston because I had left that job. I had several other jobs and I didn't like any of them, and I needed a change. And I love the East Coast, and thankfully I love Boston. So I was like, okay, I need a fresh start. Let's do something new. I got a new job. And this job was for a nonprofit organization that helped underprivileged children with mental health problems. And I thought, oh, that's perfect. I can be a part of an organization that helps kids who have mental health problems, so they don't have to deal with depression when they're 30 years old like I did. We can figure it out before they get to that age, right? And I thought that I was going to work for this organization that was going to do a lot of good. I thought this was going to be the job that I was going to have for the rest of my life. But it turned into another one of those jobs that I hated. And they weren't really doing what they said that they were doing. And it was just torture. Every single day was torture. So fast forward a few more months. December of 2018, I took 2 weeks off for Christmas. And the first week was just glorious. And the second week, I realized that I'm a workaholic and I did not know what to do with 2 weeks off. So I started looking for stuff to do, and I was like, oh, it's December, which means that January is coming up and I'm going to start a new blog. Because every January I decide I'm going to start a new blog. I don't know what it is, something about the new year. That's when I get the itch to start something new. So I came up with this whole thing. I'd been studying a lot about my personality types, and it had helped me to help myself out of the depression that I was going through. Because I had learned so much about how I am, how I think, how I process feelings and emotions. I wanted to share that information with other people. And I thought, if I can just help one person, then it'll be worth whatever I write, however bad it is. It'll be worth it. So I actually started my Instagram account like December 28th of 2018. And I couldn't find a picture of the first... I don't think I took a picture because at that point I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. I was thinking, you know what? If 100 people followed me, that would be great. That would be awesome. If I could just get like 100 people. I don't think there will be 100 people, but there might be. And so I took this screenshot at some point in January. I was shocked and surprised that there were 700 people who followed me. So I took a screenshot of it because I'm like, wow, 700 people. That's crazy. But basically all I was doing was sharing all of the stuff that had helped me. And I was like, okay, well, there's obviously more than one person who needs to hear this, right? Not only was I running my Instagram account, but I was writing every single week on my blog as well. And people started sending me messages of how much my account had helped them and how they felt so much better knowing that there was somebody else out there like them. And it just encouraged me and encouraged me and encouraged me to keep going. So fast forward a little bit more to the spring of 2019. I started listening to this podcast that's called Don't Keep Your Day Job. It's by a lady named Kathy Heller. And she says this a lot. She says the opposite of depression is not happiness. It's purpose. When I heard that the first time, it just hit me so hard because I know that's true. Happiness doesn't come from things. It comes from helping other people. It comes from giving back. And it's so much better to live a life of chasing purpose and chasing being able to help people as much as you can, rather than chasing what you think will bring you happiness. In my experience, it's made all the difference in the world. So I know that you're all here because you want to start a blog, right? And I want to give you something more than just a blog, just a place to write, just a thing to do. I want to show you how you can help people as well. I want to show you how you can have meaning and purpose in your life, and how through that meaning and that purpose, you can build a career that you really, really love, and that you're helping people every single day to where you never have to work another day in your life. It doesn't feel like work. When you're helping people and when it truly matters to other people, it doesn't feel like work at all. I want you to be able to say this, that I love my job. This is my goal, and I guarantee you it's completely doable. Even if it sounds really weird and really foreign, it's really, really doable. So I want to share with you this affirmation that we started with this morning. I hope that you saw it posted in the group. It says, I am open to new ideas. And I want you to think about this affirmation through this process. Every time you hear something that sounds like a lot, whether it sounds unbelievable or whether it sounds overwhelming, or if it's just new and it's hard to wrap your head around it, I want you to come back here to this. You don't have to be ready for something new. You don't even have to be willing to accept something new. You just have to be open to the possibility. Just be open. But wait, I thought we were talking about purpose, right? We are talking about purpose. Let's talk about that for a minute, because so many people ask me, how do you find your purpose? And this is big for us as INFJs. We get stuck here. And I can sit here and tell you about why that is, because it has to do with our functions and our developmental age. But a lot of us aren't really ready to find our purpose until later in life, which is great. Especially it is for me. So this is another one of my favorite sayings, another one of my favorite people, Evan Carmichael. He says that your purpose comes from your pain. Not physical pain, but emotional pain. So when you think about the worst emotional pain that you've experienced in your life, that's what your purpose is. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to help people who are in that same pain, because you got out of that pain, right? You know how to get out of it. You worked your way out of it. And maybe it was a long and difficult process, but you sharing that process with other people will help them. And hopefully you'll be able to cut down on the length of time it is to go through that process. You'll be able to tell them all the shortcuts and say, here, do this because this is the best thing that you should do. That's exactly what it was for me with my blog. I started writing about my personality type because I felt lost and misunderstood. It was a really, really deep emotional pain point for me. Even when I went to go see the counselor, I spent so much money and so much time in the counselor's office. And I remember one time I took this binder, like it was this huge binder full of information about personality types. And I'm sitting there trying to explain to her personality types, and she's looking at me like I'm crazy. And she's like, if you know how, like, she's like, if you know so much stuff about this, then why aren't you putting it to work in your life? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess I was just at the research stage. And she's like, well, you need to move on a little bit from that and put this to work in your life. And I'm like, all right, that's what we're going to do. So that's what your purpose is. It comes from your emotional pain. What's the worst emotional pain that you've been through? So I'll tell you how to figure that out a little bit, because sometimes some people are going to hear this and they're going to, like, right off the bat, they're going to be like, oh, there was this one thing that happened to me that was really emotionally painful, and that's exactly how I want to help people. I want to help them get out of that. That's not the majority of people, though. The majority of people are going to be like, okay, cool, that's a great concept, but I don't know if I want to live my emotional pain all the time. And I've had a lot of pain. Or maybe I've had a pretty good life and I don't really feel like I've had a lot of pain, because that's kind of where I was. When I was going through this exercise, I was kind of like, I mean, I haven't really had that much, I don't think. So one of the exercises that you can do is to split up your life into 10-year chunks. So I'm going to be 35 this year. So if I were doing this exercise, I would go from 25 to 35, and I would just pull out a piece of paper and start writing down everything that's happened to me in the last 10 years that was emotionally painful. So when I did this exercise, I realized that in the last 10 years, I have been fired from 3 jobs and laid off twice. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm one of those really, really good employees who, like, prides themselves on being at work on time every day and doing all of my projects, like, over delivering, you know, ahead of time and under budget. Like, I'm a massive people pleaser when it comes to work. How did I get fired 3 times? Like, really? But it was true. The last 10 years, I've had some of the worst instability in my job that, I mean, it's no wonder that I'm terrified about my job because it's been horribly unstable. But also, so that was one pain point that I've had, right? Another pain point has been being misunderstood, being rejected for who I am as a person. People not even taking time to understand me or just blatantly telling me that I'm wrong. One boss that I had told me point blank, Sarah, you have a terrible personality. He's like, you do really good work, and I love the work that you do, but you have a terrible personality, and nobody likes you. And so, I mean, that, of course, went down on my list, and I was like, well, that's a really big pain point for me. I didn't know that you could have a terrible personality, which, I mean, obviously he was wrong, because I don't believe I have a terrible personality now. But that was definitely something that went down on my list. Right? So you think about the worst emotional pain that you've went through, and then you go through each one of those things that you write down and you describe it in one word, right? So being fired from a job, what word is that? I put down rejection because it felt like rejection. It felt like failure for me as well. I'm trying to think what else it could come up with. Rejection and failure are good. Loss, for sure, because I lost a lot of my independence with that. Also, for, somebody telling me I have a terrible personality, I came up with rejection as well. I came up with hurt. I came up with feeling unloved. Those are just just to give you some examples, those are some of the words that I came up with, right? So you describe your feelings in one word, and then what you do is you find the opposite of those words, right? So I said rejection a couple of times. I forgot a step that's actually in here, is what you do is you take all of those one words that you come up with, and you say, oh, I came up with rejection like 5 times. So rejection is really important. So then you take the opposite of rejection and you say acceptance, right? I know this probably sounds really confusing because I'm not doing a killer job of explaining it. But the good news is that I wrote it all out in a free guide that you can get, that I put a link to in the group, that you all should have been tagged in your introductory posts. you can go and download it for free. And it will walk you through exactly how to do this. And it's a lot more clear than what I'm being right now. So basically what you do is you come up with one word, right? So my one word is acceptance. And it's enough for you to just have one word, right? Because that one word is going to define what you want to share with other people, how you want to make them feel. I'm just looking at your comments here just for a second, just to make sure I'm not confusing you too much. Katie, it was terribly awful. He was a horrible person. He was very narcissistic. And yes, Kelly, he did have a terrible personality. For sure, he did. Okay, so you come up with your one word, and if you want to, you can take it a step farther and you can break it down into 3 other words that encompass your one word, right? So my one word that I want to share with everybody through my blog, through my Instagram, through my YouTube videos, through all of my business is acceptance. And acceptance to me, that means love for yourself first and then for others. It also means belonging. It means that we're all in this together, that no one is better or worse than anyone else, that we're all equal. And it means inspiration. I want to help others feel the same kind of acceptance. I want to be able to share that with every single person that I run into it. I hope that that's what they feel when they come to my blog and when they come to my Instagram account. So it's important for you to start with your purpose so that you know what you want to write about. When you're starting your blog, you can write about a lot of things. Like I said in the beginning, I've started tons of blogs. In fact, INFJ Woman is not the only blog that I have going on right now. I have several other ideas, but the only one that has resonated with me, that has stuck with me, that I've really wanted to commit to and be involved in, has been the one that means the most to me, that has touched on my pain point. So I really encourage you to spend some time thinking about what your biggest emotional pain is and how you can help others through that. And this, to me, is the new you, right? When you're living a life of purpose, not just working at a job, doing anything that anyone can do, not just working at a job that gives you purpose, like what I had at the nonprofit, but living a whole life of purpose, everything changes. Like I said, you won't work a day in your life because you don't hate your job. You want to get up and go to work. You're excited to write a new blog post. You can't wait to post something else on Instagram. I've been doing questions on Instagram every morning for the last few weeks, and I love answering people's questions. It's so much fun. I look forward to it every morning. And I have to make myself take a break on the weekends. I'm making myself take a break this week because I have so much other stuff going on that I'm like, okay, I need to pare down a little bit. But I end up working a lot, and I've had to make myself take breaks because I love what I do. I love being able to help people, and I want to help and touch as many people as I possibly can. So when you're in that position, especially when you have a blog that is an online business, you can do anything that you want to with your life. You don't have to be committed to somebody else's dreams. You don't have to build somebody else's dreams. You can do what you want to do. And you can live this amazing life helping other people in the process. How many of you have asked yourself this? Who am I to write a blog? Who am I to do this thing that I want to do? When I first started out writing my blog, I had this thought in my head a lot. Who am I to do this? Who's going to listen to me? I'm not a professional. I'm not educated in this area. I have zero experience. If you have this feeling, trust me, you're not alone. Every single person who starts a new blog has this feeling. It's called imposter syndrome. And that's really just a really fancy way of saying that you're afraid. This fear shows up in your life in a lot of ways. It shows up as feeling like you're not enough, which we like to call imposter syndrome. Sometimes it shows up as feeling like you're stuck or you're lost, like you just don't know what to do. You can't see anything that you want to do. Other times it shows up as indecision, like you have too many options and you can't pick one. For some of us, it shows up as procrastination. I'll just put off making that decision, right? I'll just delay it for a while. I'll wait until the time feels right. But it never feels right, does it? For a lot of us, especially us INFJs, this shows up as planning mode. We think, okay, I don't want to make any mistakes, so I'm just going to plan this blog perfectly until I've thought of everything and I have everything in place and I don't need to worry about anything. And so I'm going to plan each one of the posts, and I'm going to plan my website, and then I'm going to plan my social media, and before you know it, you've been planning for a year and you haven't actually done anything. The thing about fear, though, is that the more that you avoid it, the stronger it gets. And all of these thoughts start running through your head. What if I fail? What if I'm rejected? What if this thing that I want to do doesn't work? What if I don't have all the answers? But my question to you is, so what? So what if you fail? You're probably not going to die from writing a terrible blog post. I mean, it's highly unlikely. I've written quite a few terrible blog posts and I haven't died yet. What if people reject you? Also, so what? You're not meant to speak to everybody anyway. You're only meant to speak to the people that you can touch, that you can help. That doesn't have to appeal to everyone. What if someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to? This is the one that I'm the most scared of. Because when you place yourself in a position of being an expert, then you're supposed to have all the answers, right? But is that really true? Do the people that you look up to as experts, do they have all the answers? Not always. In fact, the ones that I look up to the most are the ones who are willing to say, you know what? I don't know that, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to figure it out for you. Or, hey, talk to this person over here because they're actually an expert in that topic. Just because you don't have all the answers doesn't mean that you can't do this thing that you want to do. So I have this fancy word that I want to share with you. And it's kind of hard for me to say, but I'm going to try it anyway. It's called pluralistic ignorance. Now, pluralistic ignorance is the belief that other people know more than you do. They act like they know more than you do. Some of them will even tell you that they know more than you do. And so we just naturally believe them, right? We all do. It's something that's really, really common. It's not, think about it this way. It's not common for you to go check somebody's credentials, is it? Even when you go to the doctor, you don't generally ask them where they went to school. They're just telling you that they're a doctor, and so you assume that they're a doctor, right? It's kind of the same thing. There are so many life coaches out there or experts on social media or YouTube, and you don't really know what their credentials are. They're just telling you that they know what they're talking about, and so you're like, okay, cool, you know what you're talking about? Great, let's go with that. The thing about pluralistic ignorance, though, is it holds us back when we use it as an excuse not to share what we know with other people. The assumption that other people know more than we do, that's what pluralistic ignorance is, right? So when we go with that assumption, it holds us back because we say, oh, well, this person is an expert, so I don't know as much as they do, so I can't share what I know. But here's the thing. I want to read to you this quote from Kathy Heller. It's one of my favorite quotes from her. She says, "A breakthrough comes in the moment that you decide that you're going to do something that you've never done before. You're ready to enter uncharted territory. What it takes is a definitive decision that you're committed to." So it doesn't matter whether there's other people out there who know more than you. It doesn't matter that you have this feeling that you don't know enough to share. Believe me, you do know enough to share. Just like we spoke about last night, you went through some really deep emotional pain. You got to the other side of it. You know how to get through it. And that knowledge is enough that somebody else out there needs to know that. You can share that with them and you can help them. And that's the most important thing. All you have to do is decide that you're going to do it and be committed to that decision. So you can decide and you can be committed, but you can still be afraid, right? So here's how we get through fear. We start with accepting that you are afraid. Everyone is afraid. Even people like Oprah and Beyonce, they're still afraid. When it comes to putting yourself out there, it's never something that's easy. But when you accept that you're afraid, it gets a whole lot easier, especially when you're able to do the next thing, which is acknowledge that it's there. When you acknowledge that fear, it takes all of the power away from it. And you're able to do the next thing, which is use that fear as a compass. Every time that I'm equally afraid and excited, I know that whatever is causing me to feel that way is something that I need to do. I spoke last night about how I was a PR manager for a NASCAR race car driver. Getting into that position made me terrified, but also excited. So I knew it was something that I just had to do. Moving to Boston gave me that same feeling. Both equally excited and afraid. And when I started my blog and realized that it could be a full-time business, I felt the same way as well. So I knew that that was exactly what I had to do. You change the conversation around fear, right? You reframe your thoughts. Instead of being afraid that you're going to mess up or fail, you say there are no mistakes. There's only lessons. One of my favorite New Kids on the Block songs is called "Let's Try It Again." And I tried really hard to find a GIF that said "Let's try it again," and I couldn't find one, unfortunately. But I got close with this one. But every time I run into a mistake, that's what I think of. All right, let's try it again. So to me, the pain of regret is much worse than the pain of failure, right? I think about, especially when I'm in the moment of doing something that's like really difficult. I'll give you an example of the first time that I was going live on Instagram. I was terrified. First of all, because I don't like being on video. And I kind of knew what I was going to say, but I didn't have it like all written out. So I was just kind of winging it. And it was going to be live. And I also had a cough because it was earlier this year. And I've been battling this cough for most of this year now. So I'm thinking, okay, I don't know exactly what to do, and I'm terrified, and I'm sitting there like all ready to go, but like I couldn't push the button. And in that moment, I'm like, okay, I have to get through this. Like I have to learn how to do this because Instagram Live is going to be a huge part of my business. And if I don't do it, I can't live with the regret of not doing it. What if it makes or break my business, whether or not I can go live on Instagram? And I didn't want to lose my whole business over not being able to do live videos like the one that we're doing now. So to me, when I get to one of those moments where it's like, okay, I'm terrified. I don't know if I want to do this. I think about the pain of regret. Is this really worth giving up over? Or can I just push through it? The next thing is to take small steps. Prove to yourself that you can do this thing that you want to do. Because getting through fear, having the courage to do something, it's like a muscle. Generally, you can't just dive into something huge and go for it when you're terrified. It's a whole lot easier to start with something small. And then once you've proved to yourself that you can conquer that, you hold yourself accountable to make sure that you do it, then you move on to something a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Okay. I've been reading this book recently by a lady named Byron Katie, and she talks about how we start out as children. When we're children, our focus is on who we are and on what we want. And somewhere along the way, we start to look around and notice that other people notice us. And we decide that we like being noticed, right? We decide that we want to be noticed a little bit more. And so what we do naturally is we want to start to impress people. And this is especially true for us as INFJs because most of us are really, really big people pleasers. We end up spending our whole lives trying to be impressive. Even in really small things, we want to look a certain way when we leave the house. We want to make sure people know how educated we are or where we grew up. We want to have the best picture-perfect life on social media. Everybody does it. We even hide things from our parents, from our siblings, from our significant other, even if it's just something as little as, you know what, I don't really like watching baseball. I would much rather watch 90 Day Fiancé. But we want to be impressive, right? We want to be agreeable. We're constantly seeking that approval. I love this quote from the book that I'm reading. It says, "The unspoken belief is that unless people approve of you, you're worthless." What I got from that book, though, is that it's not true at all. That there is no reason whatsoever that you actually need to be impressive. You don't need to be impressive. You don't need to impress people. You don't need people to approve of you either. And the way that you get out from under this is to notice when you're trying to be impressive. And to ask yourself why. Because like I said, you don't need to be impressive. In fact, the more that you're not impressive, the more people are actually going to find you impressive. I know that sounds kind of backwards. So let me say it again. The more that you're trying not to be impressive, the more that you're just being honest and open and raw with people, the more that you have that feeling of you don't need anybody else's approval except for your own, the more people are going to be drawn to you and attracted to you. As long as you're living a life that you're proud of, you're good. And when you start writing your blog, this is a huge piece of the puzzle. I know that when I first started writing my blog, the first thing that I thought about when I sat down to write is, what if my mom reads this? Or what if my friends read this? Like, I almost started censoring myself. Because I'm like, I don't want to make them mad. Or I don't want to embarrass myself either. But my next thought was, I really want to help people. And the blogs that I read that helped me the most were the ones that were the most raw, the most honest. I used to like to read the blog that Glennon Doyle wrote that's called Momastery. Because she would talk about things like depression and anxiety and eating disorders. And not very many people spoke about those things. So when I sat down to start my blog, I was like, you know what? I want to talk about depression and anxiety and eating disorders. But I really didn't want my mom to read that. This book by Byron Katie has helped me so much with that because I finally understand that I don't need to be impressive. I don't need my mom's approval. Even though I may want it, I don't need it. And it's such a weight that has lifted off of my shoulders knowing that I don't need it. And I'm 100% fine just having my own approval.
All right, so today I shared with you highlights from the first 4 days of the 5-day challenge. If you want to watch the whole videos, including day 5, which is really the best day, which is we talked about how to make money. You can find the links for those videos in the show notes. You can also find them on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/INFJ Woman. I really hope that you will go and check them out. Blogging has completely changed my life, and I absolutely know it can do the same thing for you. If you are thinking about starting a blog, if you want to write, I really, really encourage you to go ahead and do it. Take action. It is so worth it. It's so worth fighting through all the fear. It's a completely life-changing experience, to be quite honest. I also wanted to let you know that I do one-on-one coaching. So if you have any questions or if you're interested in setting up a consultation, there is a link for that in the show notes as well. I would be more than happy to talk to you. You can also reach out to me on Instagram. You can find me at INFJ Woman, and I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. Most days I do questions in the stories. So if you find my Instagram account and click on the stories, you'll usually find a story that says ask me a question. So you can post your questions there as well. I also wanted to let you know that I have a YouTube channel for my podcast. You can watch all of the interviews there if you prefer to watch the videos. You can find it at youtube.com/The Quiet Ones Podcast. There's a link for it in the show notes. I hope that you will go and check it out. And when you do, please subscribe. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you again next week.